Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining in. I'm joined here by Yuval Ackerman, and this is Creators on Brand. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about kind of ethical email strategy and how to work with email and things like that. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for inviting me to talk about something that I love so much.
Of course. And I mean, one of the main reasons I invited you to is because my email game is god awful. So it's like I'm trying to learn as much as I can from you. And I know
All
a lot of
right.
other people are in very similar positions, especially a lot of the clients I've worked with. I do like these little workshops and things like that. And email comes up, and I don't have much to give other than a high level strategy. So, from your perspective, what is ethical email strategy, and then kind of more about what you do? What do you do?
Mm. So the other day I had this community post, and I asked people to ask me, "What do you want to know?" And one of the questions was, "What is actually ethical email marketing or ethical marketing in general?"
Right.
And then I paused before I answered that, and I said, "You know what? Ethical email marketing or ethical marketing is actually good marketing. Period."
Right.
It's all about making your subscriber, reader, customer, client feel heard and seen and understood
Mhm.
without all the tactics that are very common,
Right.
um, of I don't know, FOMO and shame and
Yeah.
guilt.
Right.
And basically it's an approach that sees clients as people first
Yeah.
and
That's
walking wallets second.
right. Yeah.
Instead of the other way around.
Exactly.
So that's what I like about that.
That's that's cool because I know for me personally, I've used some FOMO stuff and things like that in the past, and it hasn't worked for me compared to when I've reached out to people and said, "Hey, like I've seen you on LinkedIn, blah 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 blah," and starting a real conversation. So
Yeah.
like, what are some of those tactics that you've seen people use that you're trying to avoid?
Mm. Shall I get into specifics?
Sure. Yeah. If you want to.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I think that might be helpful for people to understand. Now, before I mention anything and everything, I also want to say that ethical marketing in general and ethics as a concept is a very loose term. What is ethical for me might not be ethical for you, and that's completely fine. As long as we're having the discussion, as long as we have this topic in our
yeah.
minds, I always say you're already like 50% ahead of a lot of other people in the game. So my stance on tactics that are used or are described as best practices
Hmm.
is very strong, and my standards are pretty high up there.
Yeah.
Still, use them as you see fit.
Yeah.
I despise emails that are being sent to you for the first time with a re in the or
Mhm.
forward in the
Yeah. Makes
subject
sense.
line.
Yeah.
It's a tactic that is used for people to actually open an email.
Yeah. Seems a little
um,
scammy. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, if you really need to use this tactic to get people open your emails, then the problem is much, much, deeper than just the fact that you have low open rates,
Right.
which are not to be even um, believed
Yeah.
to either way, because open rates have never been a credible stat, and their credibility is on the decline like
So
since
what
forever.
do you look for? What do you look for instead? Because that's something I sit there and I see 90% open rate and I get pretty happy about it. So I don't know
Mm.
what else are you looking for?
Oh, what else do I look for? Click rates, replies. I love replies.
Yeah.
I always say that the hierarchy of I'm calling it, the mental heavy lifting of subscribers. So the easiest thing to do is to open and then to click on something. And then we're talking about conversions and replies, which are parallel to one another, but not completely the same thing, because you can have the most amazingly written email and then send people to a sales page or a web page or
Right.
whatnot, or even a calendar link, and something is not working or the link is broken, you know?
Right. Yeah.
so so then conversions are not necessarily emails dependent.
Right.
um,
Okay. Gotcha.
yeah, and replies are really hard to get, to be honest.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've noticed the same thing. So
But if you train your subscribers early to do that, You can.
And what does that look like? Because I've seen you talk about that before. So like, what does it look like to make that mental heavy lifting a little bit lighter? What does it look like to train people like that?
Let's try to compare it to getting to know someone in real life, right?
Mhm.
Because email is a conversation, it's a dialogue, not a monologue.
Right.
Let's say, and let me ask you, you're going to some kind of a meetup or some kind of an event in person,
Mhm.
and you meet a new person. How do you introduce yourself?
I guess I'd say my name. So if it's a meetup, is it like a
Let's say a
networking thing?
professional, yeah, a networking
Professional
event.
thing? Okay, so I'd probably just say, I mean, my name and a little bit about what I do. Um, but then, I mean, from there, I'd probably ask about them a little bit more than myself, to be honest. So yeah, okay, I see where you're going with this for sure. Yeah.
Because the thing is, emails are still considered to be way more personal than social media, first and
Mhm.
foremost.
Right.
But also, if you think about it this way, email is electronical mail. Now,
Right, I see what you mean.
I don't know about you. I still, it's like -6 degrees right now in Berlin. It's hella cold. I don't know how much it is in Fahrenheit, to be
Yeah,
honest. Probably
yeah,
around the 20s or something.
right around that.
Um, so I'm still the kind of person who, when I go out and open my post box, I'm excited to see letters with my
No,
name
yeah,
on it.
yeah.
I love it, even though I know that like 95% of it are bills.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. No, something we started doing is like, for example, like after a project, we'll run like a workshop, and then especially if they go and do like the design piece, I started sending handwritten thank you notes. So I'll ask for like their PO box or something, and I'll send a note, and it's really really cool because people respond so well to that, and it's like they come back months later with a picture of it, and it's like, hey, I still have your note. You know, how's everything been? Blah blah blah. So it does work. I see where you're coming from for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a personalized experience, and the earlier and the faster that you can make this experience one that is tailored to your subscriber, the better,
Right.
honestly. So what do I mean when I say a welcome experience, which is something that one of my specialties?
Mhm.
Welcoming someone into your world, of course, telling them what you're all about, telling them your story, building that emotional connection with the brand owner is such an important thing. Um, but I always say, it's not about you. It's not about
Yeah.
you, Rami. It's not about me, Yuval. It's about our subscribers and how our story is going to help our subscribers understand us better, understand them, and then what's in it for them. So, for example, my free resource that I'm giving away when someone is coming into my email list is basically showing them a 3-part um, course. I would say it's a very short. It's maybe 15 minutes altogether of how can you basically make sure that when you're onboarding someone into your email list, you're getting all the information that you need. They're getting all the information that they need, and basically really streamlining this process so you can really tailor a really unique experience for everyone involved
Right.
on repeat, evergreen, automated,
Yeah.
as
Oh,
simple
makes
as
sense.
that.
Oh,
Um,
so what does it look like to kind of curate an experience for your audience? So how does that process start? Because I know for me, I like run a workshop where I do customer interviews for people or something like that. What does it look like for you to understand their audience?
mm, you know what? Because here's the thing: email strategy is something that is it can look very similar um, in terms of like bird's eye view kind of thing, but if you get into the details, it's actually really different. So what I would love to do, and tell me if you're on board. We don't have to do this. How about we, build your strategy right now?
Sure, that'd be
Your
actually
welcome
great.
sequence.
That'd be
Okay.
awesome. Yeah.
Um, so tell me, what types of clients do you have, and what types of of services do you offer right now? And
Sure.
let's keep them like at like let's
I'll do
keep it
minimum.
kind of simple, like two, like let's say 2 and 3 and 2 and 3 or something like this.
Okay. So essentially, the people I work with are small, like direct to consumer brands. So they just started. Maybe they have a product. They're on like Shopify or something like that. Or I work with SaaS companies, so similar idea, but now they have a software as a service product. And the main offer that I have that gets the most interest are these workshops that I run. And it's a brand clarity and direction workshop, where it's essentially like split into 2 days, where day one, it's all about understanding who you are as a brand. So getting your mission, your values down, who your audience segments are, things like that. And then day two is about implementation. So taking all that and making, your brand touch points, customer expectations, things like that. So that's kind of the main offer. And then from there, we usually build out design and messaging based off of it. But the workshop is a standalone thing. And that's kind of the main thing that gets the most interest.
Okay. And let's say people who are getting to you, they already know that they want the workshop, right? But do you have anything to offer them if they are still not ready?
So I only have like a checklist type of thing. But I
Okay.
feel like I can do more with it, but that's something I have right now. Yeah.
Okay. So what I would do is, and this checklist, is that some kind of something that you can offer as a free resource?
Yeah, it's
Or
complete. Yeah, I offer it for free, but I'm looking to build something out that's kind of like a paid version, but a lot smaller.
yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I'm thinking in trees, like of
Okay.
automations
Cool.
and stuff.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm thinking. The free resource, which is what people know as the lead magnet,
Right.
horrendous term that I absolutely hate.
Yeah, I know.
Um, ugh,
I know.
so
I get it.
disgusting. So the checklist could be your lead magnet.
Hmm.
And then you basically start your welcome sequence by introducing yourself and your brand and what's in it for your subscriber. You're also setting expectations in terms of how frequently you're going to be sending them emails. What are you going to talk about, and what's in it for them? Yeah, again, what's in it for them to be on your list.
Right.
And then basically something that I absolutely love doing in welcome sequences is asking your subscribers like the translation of this is, where are you at in your customer journey? We're
Yeah.
not saying that
Mhm. No, right.
in
Not
those
direct.
words,
Yeah.
obviously, but
Right.
how ready and how aware and how ready are you to actually take a step forward and dive into what I can actually do for you.
Right.
So depending on, and it's, you make it really, really simple and like stupidly easy to engage with you.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
people can click on the email and that's it. And
Yeah.
depending on what people click, then you have some kind of, you have two branches going out of this email.
Hmm.
The first branch is aimed for people who are not ready yet or not really aware of what you're capable of.
Right.
There you're doing, from that branch on, you have maybe a mini sequence of some kind of a nurturing. And by the end of that, small sequence or small funnel, you're actually offering that small foot in the door, like gateway product for people
Right.
who are not yet ready to do a workshop with you.
Got it.
The other branch is for people who are a bit more aware, a bit more ready, and the goal would be to actually pitch them the workshops.
So
And
that
you
would be
can
right off.
obviously,
That'd be
yeah,
right off.
yeah,
Like that. Okay. Got it.
yeah. I mean, you are doing nurturing. It's important because we do need to remember that about 80% of the people who are joining your email list, I don't remember if it's 80% or actually more, but the
Mhm.
majority of the people who are joining your list are not ready to buy from you yet.
Right. Yeah.
So by pushing things, shoving things down their throats
Yeah.
right off, fresh off the bat, is not going to help anyone.
Yeah. Makes sense.
That's
Can you
something that I
also make it?
see.
Can you make it too long too? Because I think that's something that maybe I've had a problem with, because I've tried to do these email kind of like drip campaign type of things, and
Mhm.
I feel like I spend a little too long on building up this trust factor before offering anything. Um,
What is too
is that
long?
something? So I don't know. It might be like 2-3 weeks. I've spent like 3 weeks of emails without selling a thing or offering anything,
How
and I
many emails?
probably 3 to 4, and then I would sell something, which has
Mhm.
like worked okay. But I feel like honestly, this way that you're bringing it up kind of shows people are interested a lot earlier or sooner. Yeah, I'm sure.
What I would test out, and I cannot give you like a definite answer
No,
of
sure.
like,
Yeah.
this is what you need to do and this is going to work tremendously and you're going to make so much money out of it. Absolutely not. What you can do is you can speed up the cadence. What I would probably do is I would send those 3 to 4 emails within the span of 1 week tops.
Okay, got it.
And see what that yields.
Okay, yeah, definitely. And so also when you're going kind of through that whole funnel, through that tree, are you looking for different metrics throughout that? So like at first, are you maybe looking for if somebody opened and then if somebody clicked later on? How does that work?
Absolutely. I mean, a part of building a strategy is to assign tags, if I can try to oversimplify what I mean. You need to see what you're linking to in terms of clicks. I'm not talking about open rates because open rates are, yet again, not something that I think is trustworthy enough.
Makes sense. Yeah.
I do look at click rates, and with each and every link that we're putting in the email, in the drip or in the automation,
Right.
we're thinking, yeah, if someone clicks on this, what kind of label, so basically what kind of tag can we give this person, and accordingly maybe even a segment, which is like the group of the people who have the same tag or clicked on the same thing, and if we have this tag or this segment, what does that mean?
Okay. Yeah.
Segmentations early on is really, really important, actually. So that's something that as a part of the strategy, you're also kind of incorporating this so it can later on help you with understanding where your subscribers are in their own customer journey and basically sending them emails that are relevant to them,
Right.
not just blasting them with everything.
Yeah. And that's another question too. So when you're segmenting initially, because I assume that your strategy isn't just one campaign that's running. I'm assuming that there's kind of overlapping pieces to it as time goes on. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of assumed that you would segment and then each segment would get kind of a different email campaign, or is that not? I'm not sure.
In an ideal world, absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
Absolutely. In reality, that's not necessarily what's happening.
Okay. Got it.
A lot of companies are not as organized or as strategic, and they're just sending campaigns out
Okay.
as is. Where, matter of fact, if you're sending highly relevant people to the segment that wants them and needs them, or might respond well to them, that would yield much better results, and everyone would be much happier.
So what would an ideal campaign look like for you if you had an unlimited budget, and a company just said, Yuval, take it, do whatever you need to do? What's everything that you would do? What's an ideal thing look like?
Oh, I don't know. That's a very good question. No one has ever asked me this before. An ideal campaign, what would it look like? I think it would just have a really, really good story.
Mhm.
I don't know how it would look like per se.
Right.
I don't know how long it would be.
Mhm.
Because I am working both with personal brands and e-commerce. So
Right.
the lengths are obviously pretty different.
Right.
But I do like the fact that it's overlapping sometimes, and things can and are looking different for both these days. But an ideal campaign, I don't know. It really depends. It really
Yeah, makes sense.
depends.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. And so you were talking about the whole story piece. So like, what does it look like to develop a story for somebody or for a brand? Let's say a brand came to you and they have a product, for example. What does it look like to sit down with you before you write any emails, before you come up with a campaign? What do you do before that?
Well, we're just having a lot of conversations about. Okay, I'll give you an example from something from a consultation call that I had about a month ago. It's a company that came to me. They're developing a really exciting product, and they told me, okay, we want to have a welcome sequence. What do we say in our welcome sequence? And I started asking them a bunch of questions, about who is this for, what's so special about you, Who can tell your story for you? Testimonials and social proof is
Advocacy.
basically,
Yeah.
doing the work
So,
for them.
so my question is like, if I were to run like a workshop, for example, like, because this is something I've been asked about, about email campaigns and things, and I'd love to send people to you if possible. But essentially, what we have is like a whole piece of what you're talking about, kind of like who are you trying to reach, um, and then I guess another question I have is we kind of come up with like your messaging framework too. So have you noticed, does the type of brand that you work with, does that dictate that the way you speak in your emails, or how do you figure out kind of like your tone of voice essentially?
I'm being asked that a lot. Um, so there are two types of businesses or companies or brands that I'm working with.
Mhm.
Ones that have everything figured out in terms of a very detailed, long voice of customer research, marketing data, the whole shebang, which is
Yeah,
a delight. Don't get me wrong.
yeah,
And they have their branding, they have their lingo, the phrasing, the messaging, everything is sorted. That's fantastic.
that is perfect.
um, then we have the other types of businesses that I'm working with that are a bit smaller, which I absolutely love because they're doing such an amazing work. And with them, they have a lot of content that they put out there
Right.
already. They
Yeah.
have a lot of different assets, and then I basically, what I do is I go in and I try to analyze and basically like a surgeon, like,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
I have all of this, I put this aside, okay, this I see repeating, this might be a problem, how do we fix that? So those are two very different processes, and it's very, very interesting with both of those types of businesses. um, what I would say is that I don't, luckily, and I'm very privileged in that way. I don't work anymore with companies or brands that are just starting out and don't know what they're doing,
Right.
don't have anything sorted out.
Right.
Um, but I work with brands that they know where they're at, they know where they want to go,
Right.
um, and they got things to already start working with and experimenting with,
It makes it a
and
lot
that's
easier for you too. It's just like you have some direction. At least you don't have to come in and do everything from the start.
and I mean, I could start from scratch, don't get me wrong, but it's a whole different process, and it's just going to take much, much longer, and usually people are not as patient.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, that's a great point.
yeah.
And that's something I've noticed too, because a lot of I'm kind of the opposite. I work with people who don't have anything figured out yet, and are looking to kind of develop a brand around just their product. Um, and that's where these, in the workshop piece came from, is because people aren't patient, and it's like when I go away and do whatever I'm doing, nobody knows what's going on. So it turned it into an interactive piece, which has made it a lot easier to get people on board and understand what's happening. Um,
Yeah.
but in terms of email, because I know the word brand, for example, is kind of hard to sell and doesn't resonate with a lot of people. So for email, I've heard that I see posts all over the place. Some people say email's dead. Some people say, email's still here. It's the future. So what are your thoughts on it? What do you think?
Well, what do you think I think?
Well, obviously, yeah, but how are you going to promote that? How are you going to promote email?
um okay. How many apps or companies have tried to dish? Yes. Ditch. I don't know. My German is now mixing with my Hebrew with my English. It's very happy today in my head.
Okay.
Um, yeah. To a lot of companies have tried to replace email,
Mhm.
and email is still here. Email
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
like one of the most profitable, if not the most profitable, marketing channels out there.
Yeah,
So, I mean, email is not for everyone. That's fine. If you don't want to do emails, if it's not working for you, okay.
right.
Um, but if you want to make it work,
Yeah.
start, on the right foot and do it properly.
No, yeah, I've definitely been convinced over the past few months, because I started off as honestly the person who said that, I don't need email, whatever. I'm on LinkedIn. I have my in-mails and whatever, but like, and so like spent months doing that, and that wasn't really working out too well for me. Switched over to email, and definitely higher conversion rate for sure.
And I mean, you don't own LinkedIn. You
Yeah,
don't.
which you've definitely now realized, especially from last week.
Yes.
Yeah, for anybody who doesn't know, I mean, you got blocked last week for sending out, what was it? You sent out a lot of DMs or a lot of connection requests?
Connection requests, yes,
Or,
because
yeah.
I'm too social on a social network.
No, yeah, that's ridiculous. And it definitely does show that you should start building up an email list, something off the platform. That's your own.
Yeah, and before you actually need to use it, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what does that look like? So how do you start building, that we were talking about that lead magnet piece, but what do you need on top of that lead magnet to start building up an email list?
You need an email service provider, which is basically the system through which you're sending your emails to everyone automatically. And there are a lot of different options out there. None of them is 100% perfect. We need to know that. But it's never I mean, you can blame the ESP that you're choosing. I certainly do. I don't think that the ESP that I chose is serving me the right way. But at the same time, I don't think it's the ESP's faults that we don't know how to use them to the best of our abilities or their abilities. So it's never about, finding, there is no such thing as the perfect ESP. It's, how we actually make use of what we're choosing and really optimizing our experience on that ESP. And you can use different ESPs for different purposes. I know that people are using, let's say HubSpot, which is one of the platforms, for example. People are using them for SaaS, for
Yeah.
example, but people also use them for personal uses and personal brands. And Klaviyo, for example, is mostly used for e-commerce. Who said that it cannot be used for personal brands either?
Right.
It really
Yeah.
depends on how you're using them and how you're, making sure that you know those systems that you're choosing.
Right. And then when it comes to getting the people to actually sign up for this kind of stuff, I mean, what are your thoughts on, for example, I've seen people like scrape emails or just like off of like LinkedIn searches and things like that, and then send out these mass emails. I've also seen people do a slower route where it's like, build up a community and then have people join themselves. What's the best way? And do you feel like scraping emails, that kind of way of doing things, is unethical, or how do you see it?
By scraping emails, do you mean, using emails that are out there in the wild and you're just adding people to your list?
So essentially, for example, something I did a while ago was I would go on like Sales Navigator and I would have a pretty like, refined search. I would find all these people and then I had this thing that would pull their emails from LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And I would send out a campaign doing that. Do you feel like that's
Mm-hmm.
an unethical way of doing things, or do you feel like, what do you think?
Well, you're asking the ethical email strategist, so I would say yes. Other people would say, if it's out there and it's available, no. With a caveat, if you're in Europe and you're doing that and you're adding people to your list without their consent, you are breaking the law, basically. So you have to be GDPR compliant as well.
Yep.
So if you're adding people to your list, A, it's unlawful, and B, it's unethical. But that's just me. I was told that I have impossible standards. So
No, I don't think that's impossible. That one makes sense. I
listen,
definitely did feel weird about it, but
I'm big on consent.
yeah,
I think that consent. Besides the fact that it's really sexy, I think that consent is just the way forward.
yeah.
Because if you don't, okay, let's flip the coin for a second. Have you ever received an email where you were added to an email list without you knowing that you were added to an email list?
Yeah, yeah,
How'd that feel?
yeah. It didn't feel very good for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's a great point. And that's something I've been thinking about too, because especially that first kind of campaign that happened about 2-3 months ago, that one did okay. Honestly, it got me a few leads, and then it actually ended up converting. But I also got a ton of emails saying, "Please don't ever contact me again." Things along those lines. So you're definitely right. Yeah, getting the whole consent piece is very, very important.
Yeah, and
Um,
as Judy says here, explicit consent.
yeah,
That's
absolutely.
hella
Yeah,
important.
yeah,
And you need to make sure that you're telling people, at any point, and that's something that they need to actually check. Like at any point you can unsubscribe. That's no problem. Like no strings attached. You're here because you want to be here. I'd love you to be here, but this is not a Catholic wedding.
right. Yeah. Um, so yeah, is there anything out there that people just don't understand about email marketing and email strategy in general? So when people come to you,
Yeah, I think not the people that come to me, because I think that the people that come to me, they do a really good job at reading what I'm posting on. I think a lot of people don't understand that email is no longer a monologue. We are no longer playing in this playground where you're just blasting people
right?
with just like buy from me, I'm the best, blah 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 blah
Yeah.
blah.
And
No. Like people want that connection,
yeah.
and people want to understand what's in it for them, um, and it's a conversation.
And I think that's a huge shift in how kind of the internet is working right now in terms of social media overall. There's this big shift that's been happening over the past few years. I feel like in terms of like this whole community piece and this whole piece of, you know, we want to get to know people one-on-one, especially on LinkedIn from a personal brand standpoint. I've noticed a much bigger improvement since I've started, this series, for example, and started just talking to other creators off the platform. Um, and yeah, that definitely does translate over to email, which is cool to see. So like when it comes to setting up a simple campaign, what are kind of the main elements that you should have put together? So like at the bare bones level, what does that look like?
I don't think you need to have anything that you don't want to have. Like every email campaign is completely different.
Right.
um I think you need to have some kind of a plan, and by that I mean you need to know how you're ending your email, or what's the purpose
Right.
of the email. You also need to think of who's the person who will read that, because if you've done you're part of the job, then you're
Right.
not sending everything to everyone, but you're sending an email to a segment.
Right.
So who are the people on that segment? Where are they at in terms of their customer experience and journey? um, what do they expect, and what is going to help them?
Right. And
So I always start with the end goal in mind. Let's say that we want to redirect people to some kind of a sales page or a shop. That's our call to action. That's our end goal.
right.
From there, you kind of reverse engineer everything else.
Uh,
Yeah.
and what do you think
It,
about kind of overloading people with stuff? It's like that's a problem I've had too. Is maybe I've put too many links in there or something, or uh,
mm,
I put images in emails before and hasn't done well or whatever. What have you seen?
I think it depends.
Yeah. Right. Right.
There are. I'm talking here, both as a professional who's doing that for a living, but also someone who's consuming tons of emails every day,
Yeah. Yeah.
like dozens, if not hundreds. Um, and I'm extremely critical about everything that I'm seeing and everything that I'm producing myself.
Right.
And I'm seeing two types of very different emails, and there are obviously more than that. But if we're talking about a lot of texts or short text,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, that happens.
Right.
But you also have emails that have 10 links, and they have incredible click rate.
Right.
And that's because we need to talk about setting the expectations, and also putting in the email what we think would be the most beneficial to our subscribers, not what will get us the highest click-through rates, even though
Right.
it's a nice ego boost.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of understanding which format you want to move forward with,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of sticking to that. But you don't have to stick to that each and every
Right.
time. Like there's a brand that I really really like, who does both. Like they do Friday newsletters with tons of links and a lot of really entertaining information. I click on a bunch of things myself. I
Yeah.
reply to them constantly.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And they have a midweek sales like campaigns that are super short, very e-com.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so they do both.
Right. So is
Same
that's kind of
with
like a retention kind of, so that's a piece of what you do too, is kind of like retaining a customer. So let's say if somebody purchases, right? What does it look like to kind of retain them after that point?
that's a whole different topic.
Uh,
Um,
I didn't know
but
if that was
I love it.
overlapping. Yeah.
It is overlapping. Retention starts basically from the moment that someone clicks on pay or buy now. Um, we I love thinking about this as strategically as, you know, what would I like the customer experience to be like from the moment that they buy. So first and foremost, even though it's supposed to be automatic, um, some kind of a confirmation email that,
Right.
you know, the payment has gone through, and, you know, from there we have stages of, you know, shipment going out, when are you expected to get your delivery if it's a
Right.
physical product. Can you track your delivery, which people love,
Yeah.
for a good reason, by the way. And then when they get their product, it could be something along the lines of, how was the delivery? Did you receive the product, you know, in its
Yeah.
entirety, safe and sound? And then a week later, it could be, what did you think? Do you need some help with that? Let's say that it's some kind of I don't know, a food startup thing,
Yeah.
or a spread or something like this.
Mhm.
So you calculate how many days from, you know, the moment that someone got their spread, until they might be finishing it, and only then you
Okay.
send something along the lines of, how about, you know, a second
Oh,
one.
that's really smart. That's cool, actually. Yeah.
You
I
know,
never
because
thought about doing it
if
like
you're
that.
sending, because if someone is, I'm using the spread example because it's really easy for people to understand. If you're buying something, if you're buying peanut butter, for example,
Right.
and peanut butter, like, as much as I love it, I don't think that I finish a jar in 2 months.
Yeah.
um what can I do? If I buy really expensive and good peanut butter, um or even, you know, simple one. If I get an email 2 days later or 2 weeks later, and
Right.
they're asking me like, "Oh, buy your second one, or recommend us to a friend, or buy yourself one, and we'll get your friend one." And it's like,
It's like, well, I still have my first one. Yeah. I see what you mean.
I'm still working on it, you know.
Yeah.
So we need to think of the experience of the end user, of our subscriber, and
Right.
tailor the journey to them. And that's why each and every strategy looks different, even though, you know, in its core it's not really different.
Right.
But when you get into the details, it's super different.
Makes sense. And then overall, because I know you were saying earlier you work with e-commerce and personal brands, right? Um, so what's the kind of the biggest difference that you've seen in terms of working with those two? And I assume one of the biggest pieces is that retention piece that you're talking about. Seems like there's a lot more into e-com.
Yeah, I will be honest, and I will say that the biggest, I wouldn't call it obstacle per se, um but there's this mindset block, I would call it, where ecom are still a bit hesitant to go all in terms of storytelling.
Right.
So I'm nudging, you know, my clients in that direction, but, you know, there's only so much I can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think e-commerce has a lot of untapped opportunities, I would say, these days.
Yeah.
And clients who are coming my way from e-com, they understand that they have a groundbreaking solution, and
Right.
they need to talk about it in a new and different way
Right.
than what the others are doing,
Yeah. Because I
because
mean, think about
it's boring already.
exactly, like think about companies like Nike, for example. I know they're the biggest company out there, but they're not selling you shoes. You know, they're selling you perseverance, and they're selling you the whole athlete mindset. Um,
Experience, yeah.
it's an experience, right? And I feel like, yeah, putting that through in your emails and telling a story is a really great way of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, and a story could have so many different parts to it. Like if I'm thinking of Nike, you can like find so many. You can find 10 stories. I mean, I can find 10 stories
Yeah.
out of thin air,
Right.
just on the production and why they decided to change the sole, and who
Yeah.
are the designers, and how it fits, you as an athlete,
Right.
and why your running is going to be better, why your posture is going to be all better,
Yeah.
things like that. It's endless. It's just, give me the product, and let's talk about the the whole process behind the scenes. That's
Right.
what people want to hear about.
And it makes for really, really great advocates. I mean, I was talking about it last week too, and with other people during these workshops and stuff. You want to have people that are talking about you to their friends. That's your top form of advocacy. So yeah, I mean, going through email and things, if you can tell your story through email in a way that resonates with people, they'll tell their friends about your products. They'll tell other people about what you do, and that's the number one thing that brings in revenue, in terms of what I've seen.
And that is why I don't believe you when you say that your email game is terrible, because you know those things.
Yeah, I guess that's true. It's just maybe what I meant to say is it's not the most ethical, because the way I get the emails maybe isn't the best.
Well,
But yeah,
you can start anew today.
yep, that's what's gonna happen. We're a new man today. Um,
Right.
cool. So yeah, these generally run about 45 minutes. So just to kind of end it off, if there are any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But in the meantime, I mean, if there's anything you want to end off by saying, feel free.
Sure.
Anything you want
Join
to
my list. I'm talking about ethical email marketing on a weekly basis, even though it's not decided just yet. I might take a little break during January, just because I am going to uproot my life from Berlin, where I'm currently at, and have been in the past 6.5 years. And I'm going into the nomadness game in February. So the next 6 weeks are going to be a bit hectic. But join my email list. It's the link in my profile. You can see how to fix your email experience right off the bat. You can learn amazing things about email marketing. You can steal, my email welcome sequence
what we'll be doing?
formula, whatnot. Do it. I am hilarious. No, I'm all right.
No, yeah, it's great. And thank you so much for being on and also helping me set up my strategy. I'm going to be watching back the recording after this and starting to set it up. So I really appreciate that.
No, for
Um,
sure.
and everybody who joined in, thank you so much. And I will see you guys next week.